getting to know them personally with interviews on Rock Made of Metal.
I'm out here on my own. I'm giving it a go alone. I'm begging on my knees. Is there a God to save me?
I'm Jerry Horton, play guitar for the band Papa Roach.
Brilliant. And you've been on the road right now for about a year and a bit, actually, for your album The Connection and whatnot as well too. Just for rumours about it kind of coming off for next year as well too, when you're going to make a new album, if that's kind of right or wrong, am I right saying?
Yeah. We have 2 more shows on this tour, and then we're home for the holidays, and then we get back in the studio in February for the next record.
We'll talk about that in a sec anyway, but I just kind of want to talk about the kind of cycle that you've had for Connection so far and whatnot then. First of all, how's the journey been? Like, if you could describe your journey on that album.
It was a very extensive journey, actually. It took us about 6 months to write and record the record, mainly because we were sort of allowed the freedom because we recorded it in our own studio in Sacramento. Also because Jacoby was going through some crazy personal things in his life. His wife split with him and kind of kicked him out, and he had to do a lot of soul searching and decided to write about what he was going through. And it sort of took a while for him to realize that he had power over his own life. Kind of had to run its natural course. And then we got out on the road. Keep in mind, he was doing singing all day, every day for about, I would say, 3 months. And we finished the record, had like 3 days off, and then went straight on tour. And we did a tour in the States in June of last year, and then we had 2 weeks off, and he was struggling by that point, and we went out on the Uproar tour. It was hard to do because his vocals he was having a really hard time with his voice, and we got about 4 days into it and just decided to just pull off of the tour. So it was a very hard decision that we had to make, but it had to be done to preserve his voice for the long term. So
Absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, for Jacob has said, obviously he's probably gone through a lot of what's happened last year as well too. The fact that he's always been kind of a fighter, Jacob, anyway, so it's great that you've been. But kind of from your side as well too, you kind of having to kind of go through like kind of the experience of what's happened to Jacob as well too, especially as one of your bandmates as well too, kind of going for. How did you find it? How did you kind of deal with that then when you were there?
It was pretty difficult because we were shouldered with the task of writing music while all of this was happening. So, on one hand, we wanted to be there for our brother. We wanted to give him solace, give him advice, but at the same time, we had to keep the train rolling and keep it moving. And so we did that, and it finally came to the point. Jacoby we said, you just have to write about it. I know he didn't want to write about his relationship because he does that a lot, but it was just the only way for him to be able to get through it, move on. Once that got set in motion, and then it started, the process became a lot smoother. But
once it did get a lot smoother and whatnot as well too, so having the kind of more kind of from the album kind of production of it and whatnot as well too, and how the difficulties that came from that when you were on stage and you were performing the music, was it kind of a positive or negative experience for you to kind of play that music? Do you think it kind of fit in well almost? Did that make sense?
It actually it does fit. The new electronic elements that we have in the record, they don't overtake the record. It still allows for the rock Papa Roach sound, but it just adds another element. And I don't think that people are disappointed in any way that stuff is there on a track. I just think it adds a little extra texture and distinction between instruments and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. And as far as like you going out there and playing that as well too and whatnot, would you say kind of positive experience with the stuff that was happening behind you as well too and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's great. The crowds are jumping and the people are singing along with it, and it's been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that always got to me as well too is, I mean, it's about 20 years now that you've been about and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of bands when they get around with their 20-year experience as well too, they kind of lose a wee maybe about that creativity, maybe that kind of courage, I'll say, the courage to try something new and whatnot as well too. I mean, are you guys surprised that you still have that, you still have that, you know what I mean, that hasn't necessarily ran out when it may have done so for other bands who have gone for like a 20-year cycle?
I just think it's in our nature. We've changed our music over the years, even before Infest came out. So it's just in our nature, and I think we have a cool relationship where we sort of keep each other inspired. One person will have something in their computer and play it, and then that'll spark some sort of idea, inspiration from another person, and it just sort of just gets passed around, and it's not something I don't think it's something that's going to go away anytime soon. Yeah.
Well, even with that said, there's something that won't go away, but your nature, what you said there as well too. But if you want to talk about your nature, are you surprised then that your nature had 20 years worth of music material in it? Was that surprised for you? Or?
I mean,
maybe the same question, but I don't know if it was that.
No, I mean, looking back on it, I don't think that we would have guessed that we would have been around this long. Yeah. We found a very cool balance between giving each other space, but then also coming together at the right times. And we're becoming better communicators, so it's kind of streamlining that whole process as well.
And that's something obviously that we talked about at the start of this with your new album, which is something that hopefully come out, is that more better communication then hopefully as well too, but one of the things of talking about kind of the more kind of experimentation of what you want to do, have you thought about what you want to do for your latest album by any chance? Maybe kind of wee things that you maybe want to try?
I think that we'll probably stick with not exactly the same formula that we have, but we'll probably keep using some electronic elements, but then we could also throw in some vintage organ type sounds, or just changing it up again. And if it doesn't work, then we can always switch it to something else. It's all about really just getting the melodies and the harmonies down, and figuring out what instrument kind of fits the style and fits the soundscape of the song. I
would definitely be going from one extreme to the other, going from like that's the reason I was giggling a bit. I was like electronic all the way to organ. Probably makes it good, but definitely a complete difference.
Yeah, it's something that we want to try. We want to try different things, and I think for the most part, a lot of our fans have been really receptive to this last record. So I think that we'll probably, like I said, kind of stay on the same path, but maybe venture off here and there.
And will that also mean that the album will be produced again really by yourself then and whatnot? Will you kind of go down that trend of no kind of like other kind of producer kind of coming in and whatnot? It's just going to be more or less you guys kind of doing it yourself then in the studio?
We did have on the last record we had James Michael produce it, and while being that we did it in our studio, he took some of the budget and bought some equipment, brought it in. He sort of became the fifth Roach, if you will. But for the next record, we want to try working with Kevin Churko, who did the last two In This Moment records. He just has a cool, like, pretty heavy sound, and we want to try going in that direction, maybe a little heavier.
He's definitely the guy to do it, considering the electronic influences that are through In This Moment as well too. But that's something as well too, the heavier kind of sound. I mean, are you excited about maybe going down that heavier sound then? Because that's something that I've heard you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it just, we're not going to be metal. Oh yeah. We're not a metal band, but the heavy music tends to make for a more interesting, like a musical arrangement and that kind of stuff. So I think we're all ready to kind of head down that path.
And also lastly, kind of for yourself as well too, I mean, from your influences and on the guitar side and whatnot as well too, what is it just on guitar that you want to maybe try and get into this album, or maybe have thought about trying to get into this album?
This record is mostly about riffs, I think. It's easy to throw chords in there, but we want to try and make some cool riffs that people can latch onto and remember, and when they hear an intro to a song, automatically just go, like when I start Between Angels and Insects, everybody knows that riff, everybody knows the intro, and they go nuts. So we're looking for that kind of thing.
Awesome. And just for the sheer laugh and sake of it and whatnot, got any really bad titles that you thought about the latest album yet by any chance?
It's funny because there are always bad titles thrown around, but we haven't gotten that far yet. What's up? This is Jerry from Papa Roach. You're listening to Rock Made of Metal. How is that?